In our last segment, critics of We Heart Seattle voiced their concerns. Now, we look at court documents in a case against its former board president, and we hear from a man who says Andrea Suarez helped pick him up out of despair. While Suarez and her nonprofit defend themselves from accusations of theft and impropriety, a man who formerly served as their board's president defends against 19 criminal counts in the state of Oregon. Kevin Dahlgren, who led a charismatic social media presence centered around helping homeless people, is now facing charges for allegedly stealing the identities of unsheltered people near Portland. Court documents indicate he was working as a homeless services specialist for the city of Gresham, Oregon at the time. He's also listed in We Heart Seattle's 2022 financial statement as having been paid nearly $30,000 for consulting fees.
Maybe the state needs to take a look at their nonprofit activities and see what they're doing, considering their former president has a lot of indictments for some very
aggravated identity theft.
For all of those things.
Suarez says he had limited involvement with her organization.
In short, validating what I was already doing. He has 20 plus years in the field, but there's not any reason to believe that he took or stole or committed any crime while, on the clock, so to speak, with We Heart Seattle here in Seattle, and we're heartbroken for anybody harmed and wish him, the best path out that's fair and justice, fair and equitable for all.
Among her ranks of volunteers are some avid supporters of her character. This man, DJ Ziegler, used to be homeless. It's how he says he met Suarez and We Heart Seattle.
Well, I know that Andrea accepted me as I am at that time. And she didn't put a bunch of stipulations on me. She didn't have a bunch of expectations. She just gave me that taste of that work ethic that I so much craved.
He says she offered him a, quote, stipend to work with her team moving his things, but could not recall the value of it when asked. He says he later checked himself in with authorities on an outstanding warrant before going to detox for meth addiction. Ziegler says without Suarez and We Heart Seattle, he doesn't know if he'd have done the same thing.
And the nice thing is the picks are only 2 or 3 or 4 hours, so it's just a taste of enough to get you in track. And then you start, and then that 2 hours turns into 4 hours, turns into 6 hours that I'm able to actually work or function. So in the beginning, it was 2 hours or 3 hours every Saturday, and that was just enough to be able to start a process and get me back on track.
Suarez contends she and others in her organization are going against the grain for a good cause, some of few entities in the greater Seattle homelessness industrial complex that she believes are carrying out meaningful action without the burden of dogma. Their critics say their actions only worsen the situation in the long term, with no direct tie to a governmental body for accountability. People like Hughes search for those they can trust to help them out of the trenches of homelessness and the ideological crossfire surrounding it.
It's like, just trying to stay out of harm's way, I think, is what we kind of trying to preach.
Try to turn the other cheek?
Man, they're getting thin, bro. But I kind of have to. I have to be lenient, and I have to understand that everybody's at a different POV.
Despite the accusations and doubt cast on the organization's ethics, We Heart Seattle and its volunteers were the ones to find the person's remains near Dexter Avenue. It's city land, and yet city crews had not found the person's corpse long enough for it to decompose down to the bone. It's unknown when the city's next planned cleanup trip to the piece of land was scheduled to be, so without We Heart Seattle's visit to the camp on January 8th, it's unclear when the person's remains would have been found, and with it, future closure for the person's family, wondering just where their relative went. In the meantime, some in Seattle wonder how many others have died, forgotten, on public land, and how many more will be found. I'm Sam Campbell for Cairo News Radio and MyNorthwest.com.